They filed petty complaints about my lawn every week, mocking, "Your yard is bringing down property values." Annoyed, I hired a landscaper and won the neighborhood's Best Yard Award. Humiliated, they whispered, "We never had a chance." I smiled, "You never will." Their jealousy was the sweetest victory. I never thought a patch of grass could cause so much trouble. When my wife, Sarah, and I moved into our cozy home in Maplewood, New Jersey, we were excited to be part of this charming neighborhood. The tree-lined streets and well-kept homes made it feel like the perfect place to raise our 2 kids. Little did we know, our lawn would become the center of a neighborhood dispute that would test our patience and determination. Our next-door neighbors, the Hendersons, were known for their pristine yard. Mr. Henderson, a retired military officer, maintained his lawn with the precision of a drill sergeant. The grass was always trimmed to the exact height, the hedges perfectly shaped, and not a single weed dared to show its face. Their flower beds bloomed in coordinated colors, changing with the seasons. It was clear they took immense pride in their home's appearance. In contrast, our lawn was a work in progress. Between juggling full-time jobs and caring for our young children, Sarah and I did our best to keep up with the yard work. We mowed the lawn when we could, pulled weeds on weekends, and planted a few flowers to add some color. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and we were proud of it. The first sign of trouble came during a casual conversation with Mrs. Henderson. While retrieving the mail, she approached me with a tight-lipped smile. "John, I've noticed your grass is getting a bit long," she said, her eyes scanning our yard. "If you need to borrow our mower, we'd be happy to lend it to you." I was taken aback but managed a polite response. "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson, but we have a mower. We've just been a bit busy lately." She nodded, her smile never reaching her eyes. "Of course, I understand. It's just that a well-kept lawn benefits the whole neighborhood." I assured her we'd take care of it and went inside, feeling a mix of embarrassment and irritation. Over the next few weeks, similar comments followed. Mr. Henderson would mention the dandelions creeping into their yard or suggest the best times to water the lawn for optimal growth. While the remarks were framed as friendly advice, there was an underlying tone that made me uncomfortable. Then the official complaints started. Every week, we received notices from the Maplewood Homeowners Association citing various infractions, grass exceeding the allowed height, weeds in the flower beds, edges of the lawn not properly trimmed. Each notice came with a warning that failure to address these issues could result in fines. At the bottom of each complaint were the signatures of Mr. and Mrs. Henderson. Frustrated, I decided to address the issue directly. One evening, I approached Mr. Henderson as he was meticulously pruning his rose bushes. "Mr. Henderson, I've noticed you've filed several complaints about our lawn. Is there something specific that's bothering you?" He straightened up, wiping his hands on a cloth. "John, it's nothing personal. We just believe that maintaining our properties to a certain standard helps keep the neighborhood's appeal and property values up." I nodded, choosing my words carefully. "I understand the importance of a well-kept yard, but Sarah and I are doing our best given our schedules. A little understanding would be appreciated." He gave a curt nod. "Of course, we all have to do our part." The complaints didn't stop. Each week brought a new notice, each more nitpicky than the last. It felt less like a push for neighborhood standards and more like a targeted campaign against us. The tipping point came one Saturday morning. As I set up the sprinkler, Mr. Henderson walked over, his expression serious. "John, a few neighbors have expressed concern," he began. "Your yard is bringing down property values. It's not just about looks, it's about the community's investment." I felt a surge of anger but kept my composure. I wasn't aware our lawn had such an impact. He shrugged. "Just something to consider." That evening, Sarah and I sat down to discuss our options. We were tired of the passive-aggressive comments and the constant complaints. We decided it was time to take action, not out of spite, but to reclaim our peace of mind. The next day, we hired a professional landscaper named Carlos who came highly recommended by friends. We shared our vision, a beautiful, low-maintenance yard that would be both functional for our family and aesthetically pleasing. Carlos and his team got to work immediately. They removed the patchy grass and replaced it with fresh sod, ensuring a lush, green lawn. They installed an efficient irrigation system to keep the grass hydrated without wasting water. Flower beds were redesigned with a mix of perennials and annuals, providing year-round color. A charming stone pathway was added, leading from the driveway to the front door, bordered by neatly trimmed shrubs. As the transformation took place, neighbors began to take notice. Compliments started pouring in, and the weekly complaints from the Hendersons ceased. It seemed our efforts were making an impact. One evening, as I watered the new plants, Mrs. Henderson approached. "Your yard looks lovely," she admitted, a hint of reluctance in her voice. I thanked her, keeping my smile polite. "Appreciate that. We're happy with how it's turning out," I said. She nodded slowly, looked around our yard like she was measuring every flower bed. Then she said, "Well, I guess some people just throw money at their problems." That stung. It wasn't even subtle. She turned and walked off before I could respond. That night, I told Sarah. She sighed, rubbed her temples. "They're not done," she said. "They're just regrouping." She was right. The next week, it started again. Not with HOA complaints this time. That route was dead. Our yard was now flawless, Carlos saw to that. But then one morning, I found dog poop in our newly mulched flower bed. Big, fresh, and definitely not from our dog. We didn't even have one. I cleaned it up, chalked it up to bad luck. The next day? Same thing. Day after that? Again. I set up a cheap motion camera I picked up at Walmart, hidden in a bush. It only took one night to catch them. The Hendersons. Walking their huge golden retriever, looking around to make sure no one was watching. Mr. Henderson let the dog go right in our flower bed and walked off like nothing happened. I was fuming. I showed Sarah the footage. She said, "Don't confront them." Not yet. So I sent the video to the HOA president. No warning. No context. Just the clip. A few days later, the Hendersons got hit with a formal citation from the HOA $250 fine for pet violations. It was the maximum penalty. That same evening, Mr. Henderson knocked on our door. I opened it. He stood there with the same military posture, jaw tight. "You think you're clever, don't you?" he said. "No," I said calmly. "Just done playing nice." He opened his mouth like he was going to say something else, then just shook his head and walked away. I wish it ended there. But it didn't. 2 weeks later, we got a notice from the town. Someone filed a complaint that we were running an unlicensed home business. It was nonsense, of course. We weren't. But a town inspector still had to come out. We gave him a tour, showed him everything. He apologized for the hassle and left. But that complaint? It meant someone had gone out of their way to cause us trouble. It wasn't random. Then came the fake pest control guy. It was a Friday afternoon. I was working from home. A white van pulled up. A man in a blue jumpsuit with a clipboard rang the bell. Said he was there for a termite treatment. I told him I didn't schedule anything. He looked confused, double-checked the address, and said someone booked a full yard fumigation service for John. I knew I didn't. I asked who paid. He said it was supposed to be cash on delivery. I told him it was a mistake and sent him away. Later that night, I told my neighbor across the street about it. Mr. Kwan, quiet guy, keeps to himself but sees everything. He said, "You're not the first. The Hendersons don't like being embarrassed. They've pulled stuff like this before." That made my blood run cold. They had a pattern. This wasn't about grass anymore. This was about control, pride, image. They had run this neighborhood like their own little kingdom for years, and now someone pushed back. That someone was me. Sarah and I knew we couldn't keep reacting. We had to take it up a notch. But smart, quiet, controlled. She had an idea. Let's go public. We started a small anonymous blog, Maplewood Unfiltered. We shared our story in pieces, nothing that named names, just real tales of suburban sabotage. We posted videos, photos, timelines. People began sharing their own stories. Anonymous ones at first. Then names started showing up. Other neighbors had been targeted. Fake complaints, vandalized lawns, messed up mail deliveries. It was like the neighborhood had been holding its breath. And now it was exhaling. We watched the Hendersons from our porch as the blog exploded in popularity. They looked more tense every day. Mrs. Henderson stopped waving at people. Mr. Henderson's morning walks got shorter. Then the HOA called an emergency meeting. And the real fallout began. The emergency HOA meeting was packed. More people showed up than I'd ever seen at one. People who'd never cared before were suddenly very interested. The air was tense. You could feel it. The HOA president, Janet, older woman, real no-nonsense type, called the meeting to order and immediately brought up the blog. Said it had become a matter of concern and that the HOA was launching an investigation into harassment claims within the neighborhood. That's when it got spicy. A woman named Denise stood up. Lives a few houses down. Said she had her Halloween decorations destroyed 2 years ago after the Hendersons told her they were too tacky for the block. She never said anything, thought it was kids. But now she wasn't so sure. Then an older couple, the Morans, admitted their mailbox had been torn off 3 times in 1 year after they refused to vote for Mr. Henderson's motion to require all homes to match a beige color palette. Even Mr. Quant stood up, surprising everyone. Said his garden had been poisoned twice. He replaced his tomatoes, cucumbers, all of it, and each time, the plants died within days. He'd never pointed fingers, but the pattern matched everything coming out on the blog. People started murmuring. I started turning toward the Hendersons, who were seated in the front row. Mr. Henderson looked furious. Mrs. Henderson looked like she was holding back tears. But then it got weirder. After the meeting, someone slipped me a note. No name. Just a sentence, check the HOA financials. It's not just about lawns. I had no idea what that meant. But Sarah? She used to work in accounting. So we filed a request to review the HOA's spending records. They tried to stall us, saying it would take a few weeks, but eventually we got access. That's when we saw it. Over the past 5 years, the HOA had paid out more than $15,000 to a landscaping company called Blue Horizon Maintenance. Only thing was, there was no such company listed in New Jersey's business database. Digging deeper, we traced the checks to a small P.O. box that was registered to, you guessed it, Mr. Henderson's niece. The Hendersons had been funneling HOA funds to a fake landscaping business they controlled. That explained a lot. Why their lawn always looked magazine-ready. Why they pushed so hard on everyone else's yards. They were using HOA pressure to drive business right back to themselves and getting paid for it. We didn't say anything right away. We wanted to be sure. Sarah pulled more records. Tracked payments, lined everything up. Once we had it airtight, we sent the entire file anonymously to Janet, the HOA president. A week later, another emergency meeting was called. But before the meeting, something strange happened. Carlos, the landscaper we hired, called me in a panic. Someone broke into my trailer, he said. Tools gone. Plants ripped up. Paint dumped all over my blueprints. They also left something else behind. A folder with a printed copy of our blog, a red marker circle around the post titled The Lawn Wars. No note. Just that. Carlos said he'd never been targeted like this before. I told him I was sorry and I'd cover his losses. But deep down, I knew who did it. The Hendersons weren't just angry. They were lashing out. And they weren't going down without a fight. We didn't back down either. At the second HOA meeting, Janet laid it all out: fraud, fake businesses, personal gain through community funds. The room was silent as she read the findings. Then she paused and looked at the Hendersons. They didn't say a word. But before anyone could react, Mr. Henderson stood up. And he said something I didn't expect. If you people think you're so clever, he sneered, go ahead. Tear us down. But this neighborhood? It needs order. And you'll all come crawling back when it falls apart without us. Then he walked out. Mrs. Henderson followed, not saying a thing. And just like that, it felt like something cracked in the foundation of Maplewood. But things weren't over. Because 2 days later, our blog was hacked. Every post deleted. Every file gone. Replaced with one post, you brought this on yourselves. The blog was hosted on a free site, no backups. We lost everything. But what they didn't know, Sarah had saved all the files offline. We were just getting started. We rebuilt the blog the same night it was hacked. Sarah had every post saved, every screenshot, every comment. This time, we moved it to a secure hosting platform and posted everything back up plus a full summary of the HOA fraud. But we added something else, all the documents. The fake invoices. The checks. The business registration search. All of it. We left nothing to question. The blog exploded again. This time, local news picked it up. One of the small neighborhood reporters reached out asking for a statement. We agreed anonymously. 3 days later, the story ran, Power, Lawns, and Fraud, a neighborhood's dirty war over grass. The article didn't name us or even the Hendersons directly, but everyone knew. Everyone in Maplewood knew. After the news broke, it was like someone ripped the mask off our whole little suburb. Neighbors started coming forward with more stories. Some of them went back years. A couple said they had paid fines for violations that didn't even exist but were too scared to challenge the HOA. Another woman admitted she'd stopped decorating for holidays because of anonymous notes warning her not to lower the block's standards. It became obvious. The Hendersons had ruled this place through shame and fear for years. Then came the big one. The township sent an official letter. A full audit of the HOA's finances was underway, and the police opened an investigation into fraud and misuse of funds. Mr. Henderson tried to fight it at first, tried to say it was a witch hunt. But when the audit confirmed over $20,000 missing or misused, and the check trail pointed straight to their P.O. box, he had no choice but to step down. They resigned from the HOA. They were fined. The township even pushed for criminal charges, and they became pariahs overnight. No one spoke to them. Their once perfect lawn began to wither. Weeds crept in. The hedges grew wild. It was almost poetic, their beloved lawn, the source of so much pride, slowly collapsing under its own weight. But this is where I'll admit I made mistakes too. At the peak of all this, when things got really ugly, I leaned into it too hard. The blog wasn't just about truth anymore, it started to feel like a weapon. I wanted them to pay. I wanted them humiliated. I wanted them to feel as small as they made me feel when they sneered at my kids playing on our imperfect lawn. And they did. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt hollow. Carlos never recovered some of his tools. I paid him back, but it didn't undo the stress we brought to his life. Some neighbors thanked us, sure, but others said they wished things hadn't gone so public. That it brought too much attention, too much mess. Sarah said it best one night after the dust settled. We didn't just fight back. We nuked the place. She wasn't wrong. The HOA was gutted. Half the board quit. A third of the neighbors stopped coming to meetings. Some even sold their homes. Said the neighborhood had gotten too toxic. The Hendersons? They didn't move. But they stopped making eye contact. They no longer walked their dog. They stayed in their house most days. And me? I still mow my lawn. I still water the flowers. But I don't wave to people as much anymore. Revenge gave me peace. But it didn't make me proud. I went too far. We all did. But when I see the best yard sign planted proudly in my grass, and I hear the whispers, we never had a chance, I still smile. Just a little. And whisper back, you never will.